3, 2, 1.
Racing World is presented by Race Control Magazine. Welcome into another edition of the Racing World podcast. My name is Darcy Waldegrave, along with Bob McMurray, that guy, David Turner, that guy over there. We are it for the next half an hour, roughly. Very special guest on the program as we preview the great race. It is Bathurst coming up. Mark Fogarty, the editor-at-large of the Auto Action magazine, will be joining our podcast to talk about the ins and outs and the ups and downs and the vagaries of a great race in front of two kangaroos and no people by the sound of thing. If you joined us on Spotify or on Anchor FM or on Radio Public, we thank you very much for that. As same of the YouTube subscribers. And if you have enjoyed our program so far, please share with all of your friends. Please like it and please subscribe as well. That gives us justification to carry on with this weekly meeting between these three motorsport heads. But before we get to the wonders of Bathurst, and I tell you what, that is a day. And I do not believe that the All Blacks have gone and put a Bledisloe Cup test smack bang in the middle of that. How rude. And I had Mark Robinson, the CEO of NZR, up about that a couple of weeks ago, and the shock in his voice when he realised what had happened. He goes, well, Darcy, why didn't you tell us? And I said, Mark, you never listened to me anyway. Oh. What was the point? So there'll be a pause or a bit of Jules screening. We'll talk more about Bathurst shortly. First up, though, not a lot happening over the weekend, but we'll start things off, Bob McMurray, with the fun and games. It's a beautiful racetrack. It was a bit of a dull race till things got quite interesting toward the end, but Formula One over the weekend, I suppose the big point of this one is Lewis Hamilton is in that pantheon. He now is equal with Michael Schumacher, 91 Formula One victories. He's going to hit that ton, isn't he? This guy's had quite the record.
And you've got to say he's going to equal the World Championships as well with 7 this year. He's on 6, Schumacher's on 7. It was a nice, he won the race obviously, and it was a nice moment when young Mick Schumacher presented Hamilton with one of Michael Schumacher's racing helmets. Don't know which one. So yeah, that was quite nice. But talk about the track first of all. It is the Nurburgring. And everybody says, oh, it's wonderful, the Nurburgring. It's not the Nurburgring. The Nurburgring is next door. Yes, it's called the Nurburgring because it's in Nurburgring.
But it's still a pretty track. It still looks nice. It's not a Herman Tilke. It's not on a car park in Abu Dhabi.
No, wait. Go back. Go back.
It's not the same as the old one.
Take long, did
1994.
No, it's not the same as the old one.
1994, we all went there the first time and looked around and thought, what the hell is this place? The crowd was 500 metres back from the corners. Everybody was miles away. You couldn't see the cars because they were so far away. And everybody said, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely just ridiculous as a circuit. You know, it was just awful. And now it looks like a normal circuit because all the other circuits have fallen in line with it. It's not that pretty.
So all the other circuits awful as well now.
Well, no, I think it's pretty where it sits.
Sort of
it sits in green. It has elevation. It's got long straight bits and wiggly curly bits and turns and stuff.
Go back to Mugello. Go back to Mugello and see what an old school circuit was like.
Okay.
That's an old school circuit. Nürburgring, the new Nürburgring, not the Nordschleife or anything else. There's the Nordschleife up there. You can't see it, people. I've got a photograph on the wall. But the Nürburgring is a modern-day track that was out of the ordinary when it was started, and now it's quite ordinary. Does it give a good race? Well, it was okay, wasn't it? It was good that it was a 2-day meeting, I thought, in that it was all
rain stop play.
Right, but that's normal up there.
As we predicted last week.
I knew it was going to be like that. And it was called the Eiffel Grand Prix because it's in the Eiffel Mountains. Apart from that, what happened? Well, Bottas could have won. He didn't. He made a mistake, and that stuffed him for the rest of the race. Max Verstappen.
You don't open the door like that, do you, to Lewis Hamilton? I'll just have a wee lock up and see you later.
And it all went wrong after that.
Ask Nico Rosberg there.
And in the end, he didn't get anywhere anyway. Max Verstappen, we all thought he was going to do well there because of the circuit, because of the way he drove, because of everything else. It didn't quite work out that way for him. And I think the difference, you might have mentioned it to me, Darcy, shortly after the race. I think the big difference was the fact as soon as that safety car ended, the one that was there for Lando Norris's unfortunate parking up and catching fire, that as soon as the safety car came off, Lewis Hamilton accelerated and was within 2 laps, was 3 seconds ahead.
Because you
And
really
suddenly
thought, here
think,
we go, something could happen here. Everyone's
yeah.
bunched up. There's only a few laps to go.
Right.
This could be a really interesting race. But his restart was superb. And plenty of the equipment he's got is that much better because in the blink of an eye, he was gone.
Yep,
It was
and I
crazy.
think there's the difference in performance straight there. So, Verstappen is not quite as close, or Red Bull, Honda are not quite as close as they think they are. And the other driver, man, Alex Albon has really got to look behind him now to
No, he
try and
doesn't.
make
He's got all the protection in the world from his bosses. He doesn't have to
it's
look behind
unbelievable.
him
Christian
at all.
Horner says, he could have been second or third. What the hell are you talking about?
no.
He qualified way back from his partner. And then Christian Horner once again is saying, it was a bit unfair that he got the 10 seconds, but he ran over Danny Kvyat's bloody front wing, for God's sakes. And he was
we got
struggling
that.
all the time.
He could have got
and
more.
he was struggling all the time. Christian Horner is being disingenuous as he's trying to protect Albon from something, I don't know what. Perhaps the Red Bull ownership. I'm not quite sure where it's coming from, but it's absolutely ridiculous.
My 2 takes of the weekend, I thought Daniel Ricciardo, great drive.
Oh, yeah. Did
I
Cyril,
thought that was
Cyril
a
get his
great drive.
tattoo? Did
And-
Cyril get
and-
his tattoo?
and
That's the big thing.
performance.
Well, he's going to.
Performance gain from Renault, which, again, if you go forward a season now, maybe that bodes well for Alonso. I don't know. I'm a cynic in that sense because I just am, but, there's some positivity there. And then the other one is, imagine being Nico Hulkenberg. Hey, remember us? We need you again. And didn't qualify well, but then again, he didn't get in the car until then. So,
You can't.
Good
No,
effort.
the qualifying. You
can't count that.
No, but the race you can. And he raced bloody well. And he made one mistake, he says, and that was at the start. He didn't get the start quite right. But where did he finish? 8th? Yeah,
Well, he said
8th.
that the car has
Just
changed
fantastic.
technically quite a lot since he drove it back at Silverstone.
Oh.
So, who knows? He's the one in the driver's seat, isn't he?
Yeah,
But
no, I think
they were my 2 takeaways, actually. I didn't really care about the rest of the race or whether it was in a Eiffel Mountains, whatever. It was just...
Yeah, I know, but it's just...
It was just-
most
it
of
was
these Grand Prix, when we go back to them, I think what it was like then and now and all sorts of things. And for those people who were in Formula One, there's one bar there called the Piston Klaus. Everybody goes, and I've seen nothing but photographs on Facebook of the Piston Klaus because everybody used to write their names on the ceiling, and they're all there, all the way back from God knows when. So anybody who recognises the Piston Klaus name at the Nurburgring, let us know. Please write in because there's some bloody good history in that place.
That's another quick reminder. Thank you to everyone who has made comments that have subscribed. They really do mean a lot to us, and we do read them as well. And then we debate them, so it's good. And you should hear the debate, which we don't publish online.
Maybe next time.
Maybe
We'll do a
next time.
special.
Yeah, but anyway, that's the end
Formula
of
One.
it. We've got Hamilton is still in the lead of the championship. Is it worth saying that? From Bottas and Verstappen and Ricciardo. The constructors, McLaren have slipped down a little bit. Norris has slipped down to 6th in the drivers, and McLaren have slipped down to 4th behind Racing Points.
Just a quick question. You're talking about takeaways of that. How did it take so long to get rid of Norris's car when he basically parked it right in front of a crane? I couldn't. I like the fact that it condensed the field, but was that almost like preordained that they thought, well, we've got an excuse here, let's condense the field, see if we can get a race out of it? Because it took a long time. The crane just had to lean over the fence, pick the car up.
Yeah,
Didn't it?
I did read
You haven't even-
somewhere that Michael Massey delayed it because there was smoke coming out of the car, so therefore it was on fire. They had to get 5 people there first
Aye.
before lifting it up. So that must have taken a lap or 2. And then all the bitching and moaning from the drivers about, he's going too slow. Well, first couple of drivers anyway. The safety car is going too slow. I thought, come on, mate, just get on with the bloody race. Don't stop bitching and moaning about poor old Bernd Mailander trying to go around there on his door handles. For goodness sakes.
Get used to safety cars because we'll probably see them at Bathurst this weekend.
Anyway, we've got a couple of good races coming up as well.
Portimao.
Portimao in Portugal. Algarve, they wouldn't have been there before. Maybe in testing some while ago. I think McLaren went there testing some while ago. And then Imola, which is another 2-day race meeting coming up, which will be good.
Good.
What else? We've got Mark Fogarty joining us shortly, editor-at-large of Auto Action magazine. Before that, though, there was some MotoGP, other few bits and pieces on the weekend, Bob.
There was a lot on TV. You say there wasn't much going on. I seem to spend most of Monday watching it. But MotoGP French Grand Prix at Le Mans was wet again. When I say again, that was most things were rained off this weekend or rain affected this weekend. I'm going through it all. The one disappointment was Valentino Rossi falling off at the first corner. Well, first lap, not first corner. To me, that's 3 times he's fallen off lately. 3 the recent Grand Prix.
He needs
maybe
to
4.
attach a Zimmer frame to his bike.
Yeah, maybe 4. But anyway,
Nature of the game.
I'm sorry to all those Rossi fans out there that I've just said that.
Yeah, there goes all our viewers.
at one point, Ducati's first, second, and third, looking really good for them. But Jack Miller's bike broke on him because it was his second bike, because his first bike wasn't ready for him to take out. So the second bike that he did the Grand Prix on there was a fault with it, and the fault didn't last long in the Grand Prix. So he was a bit pissed off about that. Petrucci was first. Alex Marquez, I thought he did well. Marc Marquez's younger brother, who struggled this year quite a lot in the races. He struggled in qualifying, really. Qualified okay, but he did really well and came second in the race from Pol Espargaro on the KTM. So it's a race worth watching, as every MotoGP is. Honestly, every MotoGP is just worth the stare. What else do we have at the weekend? NASCAR is trudging its inevitable way towards the end of the season. They're racing this weekend at Kansas, as you can see down here on the bottom, where we've got all the coming up things.
Putting a lot of trust in you that's going to come up.
When I put them there.
Yeah, as long as the editor and the producer has done it. So that we've actually got down now to the last few going
Playoffs.
onwards. Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch did not make it. Joey Logano, Bowman, Hamlin and Kenny Harvick. They're the 8 that now progress on to the next round of the playoff series. So it's condensing itself, and the interest is there. They were racing, incidentally, on what they call the Roval, which is the Charlotte Road Oval course. Very strange. And they raced in the rain. It was wet. Well, They started in the wet. And seeing NASCAR drivers handling the wet, yeah, pretty impressive. They made it.
Newgarden turned some laps on the Roval last year in the IndyCar as a bit of a demo run when they went there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'd never rule out that becoming an IndyCar venue in the future, actually. It was pretty good.
As the
Roval.
Roval.
As the Roval, yeah, he did about a dozen laps.
Yeah.
It's
fascinating.
Not that I'm wanting people to go and have a look, but it is on YouTube somewhere as well.
But they've raced there quite a lot in sports cars as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. From American tin tops to Australian tin tops. Coming up next, we're joined by, can I say, a great friend of the show's? Why not? He's not here to complain yet.
No.
And by the time he watches it, we will have done it, so we're covered.
Yeah.
He's the auto action editor at large. His name is Mark Fogarty. He joins the program next. Remember, if you're enjoying what we're doing on Spotify or Radio Public or Anchor FM or indeed on YouTube, please subscribe, like and share. You're doing us all a huge favour.
And Darcy, David, we've got a special sponsorship offer. Sponsor us and we'll talk about you. That's the only offer we've got.
Very special offer.
Great offer, and we'll take it.
We're cutting straight to the chase.
Not that Auto Action is sponsoring us, I've got to say. Mind you, it might be worth the call, but then Mark Fogarty need us to pay him. No, we'll forget all that.
Just forget we said that. This is Racing World.
Perspective Group is a leading media production company based in Auckland, New Zealand. Established in 2009 by former TVNZ producer David Turner, Perspective Group offers you a vast arrangement of media options to fit any size or budget. It covers truly global services supported by some of New Zealand's leading media talents. For more information, contact Perspective Group Limited at perspectivegroupltd@gmail.com and check out the website perspectivegroupltd.com, where you will find even more information on creating your media solutions.
You have a dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota are committed to developing and nurturing New Zealand's next generation of world-class racing drivers, because if you can dream it, we can do it.
Welcome back to Racing World. We're joined now by our sage of the West Island. He's the editor-at-large of Auto Action magazine. He's staring at me now with that look that only he can muster. His name is Mark Fogarty. Looking forward, I'm sure, to the action around the mountain, albeit he can't be there over the weekend. It still very much is our focus. Mark, welcome to the program. As per, I trust you're well, all cooped up in Melbourne town.
Stuck here in lockdown capital of the world. Couldn't be better. Yes, it could. A lot better. But all this nonsense is certainly going to make for a very, very unusual Bathurst 1000. Just right off the top, it'll be the first time ever at the mountain for a major meeting where there are essentially no people there apart from the competitors and officials. There will be, I think it's 4,000 a day spectators are allowed, and they're only allowed down at the bottom of the track around the last turn, along the pit straight and the first turn. There'll be no crowd, no people whatsoever up the top of the mountain. So, well, for one thing, the race is going to lack a lot of that amazing atmosphere that it normally has. But otherwise, I don't think it will affect the racing unduly. It will be, you'd imagine, the usual madcap, anything goes, anything can happen, anything will happen, any other cliche you like to throw at it. It works at Bathurst.
Well, the COVID restrictions, though, will that stop the kangaroos?
Hopefully not.
Well, I think they could be a problem, but they usually round them up. And, well, I guess, like you tell your children, they get sent off to a nice farm somewhere. But, no, I think they're rounded up, and as much as they can, they stop them hopping all over the place. But, you know, it's always a hazard, and it could even be more so, yeah.
Folks, just going around the race for a second, not talking specifically about the race, but Bathurst kind of depends on this one event each year to bring a whole bunch of money into the economy, with all the visitors and all that sort of thing. Is that impacting the area? I mean, I know it's almost a minor consideration, really, but is it impacting the area from what normally happens?
Well, it is just the simple fact that there won't be, 60, 70 odd thousand people flooding into the town for the great race. But oddly, I don't think the lot really want many people this time around. The Bathurst Regional Council, which owns the track and is a co-promoter, doesn't want foreigners, city folk coming in and spreading coronavirus. So they're as much a part of the strict health protocols that are going on at the meeting as the New South Wales state government and supercars themselves. And it's interesting, I would have thought that of all years, you could have your pick of accommodation around town in Bathurst because there just aren't that many people coming. But I'm told there is actually, oddly and ironically, not a lot of accommodation around because, well, two things. One, the local residents who usually lease out their house, and go away for a little holiday somewhere, they're staying put. Or otherwise, even if they're not there, they don't want strangers in their house potentially spreading the virus. So even if were able to go up, which just to point out, legally I can't, anyone from Victoria, much less Melbourne, is allowed to cross the border into New South Wales. So even though a handful of media are being given access to the paddock area at Bathurst for the first time in this revived season, I couldn't go even if I wanted to. So getting back to your point, yes, potentially economically, if not devastating, a sort of a big blow to the town. But on the other hand, I think most people in the region are quite happy that, some 80 odd thousand people are coming into town.
Getting to the nitty gritty now, a race. Firstly, congratulations on a superb preview issue to Bathurst and Auto Action. So
it's
for
huge.
anyone who's watching and you want a good read, I'm going to do the self-endorsed plug for you here, so take it.
Thank you.
Auto Action, it's available online. It's a fantastic read. Darcy, it's great for you. It's got pictures as well, so you're covered. Interesting thing that I took out of it, Mark, when I was reading it is...
And a crossword and a puzzle in the back.
The magazine or the issue rates Cameron Waters quite highly as a potential winner. Can you tell me why?
Yeah. And so he should be. Well, it's hot. Tickford Racing are finally doing things properly so far this season. Waters is in fine form, as I say. His co-driver is Will Davison, who's, not that long out of a regular drive and probably heading back into a regular drive next season. But so Waters and Davison in the Monster Energy Racing Falcon, here we go, Mustang, absolutely one of the strongest combinations, but there are plenty of strong combinations, let me tell you. You know, I couldn't pick a winner if I tried. You know, in that preview issue of Auto Action that you mentioned, you know, we had to all give our tips, and as much as to be different as anything else, my number one pick was Chaz Mostert and Warren Luff in the Walkinshaw Andretti United Commodore, just because they're a very strong combination. Mostert is as fast as. He's been dragging some form out of that Commodore this season. Warren Luff is the best dedicated co-driver out there by far, has stood on the podium so many times. So they are legitimate contenders, but, you know, pick a number, any number, throw stuff up in the air and let it fall. You know, Scott McLaughlin, obviously, and Tim Slade, another Just X regular, obviously has got to be the favourite, if you like. But the two 888 cars, Jamie Whincup and Craig Lowndes, well, what a formidable combination that is. And then almost as awesome is Shane Van Gisbergen and Garth Tander in the other Red Bull Holden Racing Team car. So you can go down the order, and as I said before, anyone can win it. Anyone probably will.
If there's any way of picking a favourite, you've got to think that there's been no enduros leading into this. Therefore, a lot of the co-drivers haven't had the mileage they should have had going in there. So it's kind of going to favour, you would think, those drivers with experience of Bathurst quite a lot. And you mentioned, obviously, the Whincup and Tander and all that sort of thing, combination. So it's surely going to favour those who have done miles around the place before, especially the winners, which are some of them are co-drivers.
Well, it would anyway. This year, yes, the co-drivers have had very little test mileage leading up to this race, but they went in essentially cold. You remember last year, because there wasn't a lead-up enduro race before Bathurst last year. The Pertec Enduro Cup was turned on its head a little bit. But equally this year, there's going to be so many practice sessions, like 7 practice sessions or something. They're going to have a huge amount of track time, and they're going to have tyres to burn. Each car is getting an allocation of 56 hard compound tyres across the weekend. And if you add, you know, they've probably got a few or a couple of tyres lying around in their tyre bank or something. So up to 60 green tyres. Co-drivers, well, they will have never had it so good. They never get to run on green tyres before the race or if ever. But this time they're going to be throwing them at them. So I don't think mileage is really going to be a big factor this time, oddly. I mean, I told you, very strange Bathurst 1000.
I guess the other thing too, with that amount of track time, and it's uniquely Bathurst, and we saw it last year with Erebus, more track time you get, the higher the risk is of dinging the car early on before the race, and then you've got a big rebuild on your hands, which is not a good scenario to have at Bathurst of all places.
Well, as usual, and if not more, there's going to be nonsense, mayhem, chaos, carambolages galore, you would imagine.
It's going to be wet. It's going to be wet as well, we hope. 80% chance we read on Sunday.
The forecast is saying so, yes, but it's the Bureau of Meteorology, so I wouldn't hang your hat on that one too much. But hopefully, yes, that will mix things up, and that just makes it even crazier. I mean, the Bathurst 1000, in almost living memory now, is always crazy. Something always happens, or many somethings always happen. And it's another cliche, but it gets down to the last hour invariably. And, you know, off it goes like a rocket. It's almost like an NBA basketball game or a, Moto3 motorcycle race. You know, you basically for the six and a half odd hours, you really only need to see the last hour of it, because that's when it all happens. Just get up, watch the start. Well, you don't even have to get up. Like my kind of race start, 11:30 a.m. Yes. Oh, thank you. The gods have answered my prayers. Gone are the days of having to get up at the crack of dawn to watch the damn thing. God.
Here's a question for you, Mark.
You get my point. There's a lot of nothing going on for a long time, and then it just goes off.
Yeah.
My question for you is how is Jamie Whincup going to ignore his team bosses this time around? How is he going to ruin his chances of winning another race? What kind of brain explosion is he going to have around the track? What's the likelihood of it? What's it going to be, do you think? Because he's got quite a history, hasn't he, of losing his plot completely when it comes to the mountain.
How many ways can you lose the Bathurst 1000? Well, you would have thought he's run through a pretty big list already, but if anyone can find a new way, Jamie's our man, isn't he? If he starts ignoring team orders or, gets a bee in his bonnet or something, he could easily throw it away, but he could just as easily romp away with it as well, if it all goes right. So despite his dire record since he last won it in 2012, you can't dismiss him. But yes, it will be interesting to see if he can find a strange and innovative new way not to win the Bathurst 1000.
And then you've got that other thing, of course, is yellows tend to bring yellows as well. And somewhere along the line, there's going to be at least one yellow in that race, and invariably, not long after it, another one.
At least one. Boy, that would be something to talk about if there are only one. Can't see that happening. Nah, it'll be many, many yellows. The safety car periods and all sorts of nonsense goes on in that time. And, what new controversies on track can we have? Who's going to fiddle the rules and who's going to be found with an illegal this, that, and the other thing afterwards. And, off it goes. We remember how controversial Scott McLaughlin's victory last year was. And also you forget how, I know it's a bit contrived in the end with safety cars, but he didn't, in the end, run away with it. If you recall, I had to remind myself that Van Gisbergen was running him down near the end. So, it got lost in all the controversy, but it was kind of quite interesting in the end. So it's going to be interesting to see how Scotty goes. He's got nothing to lose. He's the champion. He'll get presented the trophy on Sunday on the podium, regardless of when he's won or not. And then just to add to the excitement, one way or the other, as you know, next morning he's off to the United States to make his IndyCar debut at St. Petersburg the following weekend. So that young man's got a lot to look forward to.
In that bumper edition of Auto Action of yours, there's a fantastic interview between you and Scott McLaughlin. If he does, there's every likelihood he will win, and there's every likelihood he will not win. If he doesn't win, is last year going to be a sort of a stone under his beach towel on the beach forevermore? Does he need to win this year to expunge that memory? So
he certainly wants to, but is it really going to worry him if he doesn't? I don't really think so. He wants to desperately win, don't get me wrong. But really, as far as he's concerned, and I think he's pretty genuine when he says this, well, I asked him in the course of that chat that we had after Ben, I said, well, with 3 championships and a Bathurst 1000, you could retire happy now, couldn't you? And he basically says that, well, I could have retired happy after I won 1 championship and 1 Bathurst. So I think we assume he's going to IndyCar. I don't know how you guys are closer in touch with IndyCar than I am, but I think it's a done deal. Something terrible would have to go wrong that he doesn't get shipped off there next year. So that's his future set. You don't know how it goes depending on the calendar. He can always come back for Bathurst maybe once a year, or maybe in a few years he could come back and have another shot at Bathurst. So, I think it's pretty clear that it is his last Bathurst 1000. Certainly in the foreseeable future, is it his last Bathurst 1000 ever? Well, I think that's probably a bit of a big call. But from your heads nodding there, I think we all agree that Bye. See you, Scotty. Catch you next time, mate.
Yeah, makes for a great co-driver in the future, though, doesn't it? Oh, yeah.
Not yet.
And
Well,
on that,
he is an amazing young driver by any measure and any standard. And, you know, it's not as big a leap as you think going from a touring car of some kind to IndyCar, but it is still a big leap. And given his absolute lack of open wheeler history, it is quite extraordinary just what he's been able to do so far and, you know, what he could do in IndyCar. So just as Scott Dixon is, you know, coming up to sunset in his stellar career over there, you might have a walk-in replacement in terms of a New Zealander who's going to be a front runner in IndyCar.
Also called Scott.
Yeah, well, when I first met folks, we got to the end of that race weekend in Melbourne, and he basically said to me, well, the way that guy drives and with the weapon that he's got under his feet, there's no way that anyone's going to win this championship this year. And you're obviously referencing Scott McLaughlin and that ridiculous Mustang that he had a couple of years back. So you know the high esteem which you hold that young man, no doubt about that.
Always have. Luckily enough, I've always got on pretty well with him as well. And when I chatted to him a couple of weeks ago, he was in fine form. It may have had something to do with the fact that he'd hammered himself pretty heavily the night before after clinching the championship in Tailem Bend, and got up the next morning and missed his flight back to Brisbane. And while he was waiting for his delayed flight home, he chatted to me, and he was pretty loose. It was like the old Scotty McLaughlin, not the button-down, you know, Penske
version.
The pre-Penske version, yeah. We all remember that one for sure.
Exactly, but I thought it was interesting, so I've made a little note to myself in future that I get him for an interview when he's hungover. That seems to work really well. He was excellent, but he was just more relaxed and more open.
Which is why we always wake you up first thing in the morning as well, folks, to get the best out of you, because there's a good chance you are hungover or still suffering the effects of the night before. Is that a cruel and unusual thing to say? And on that, we'll let you get back to your nest now. Mark Fogarty, editor-at-large of Auto Action magazine. Always a privilege and a pleasure to have you joining us on the Racing World podcast. Look after yourself over there in Melbourne town.
Good on you guys. Thanks for waking me up.
No problem at all. If you like what you hear, feel free to subscribe, to share, to like as well. All of our action on YouTube, on Spotify and Radio Public, and of course on Anchor FM as well. This has been the Racing World podcast on behalf of David Turner, Bob McMurray. I'm Darcy Waldegrave saying look after yourself, enjoy Bathurst. Watch out for those kangaroos.
Race Control Magazine is your IndyCar fan mag and so much more. Publishing monthly online on issuu.com, you'll find Race Control Magazine there for you to download and enjoy everything IndyCar and so much more. Behind-the-scenes features, race reports and the entire Road to Indy series are just part of what you'll find, along with stunning images captured from the series' leading photographers. Grab your copy today at issw.com to complete your motorsport read.
You have a dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota are committed to developing and nurturing New Zealand's next generation of world-class racing drivers, because if you can dream it, we can do it.
Racing World is presented by Race Control Magazine.